Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board for Tuesday, August 17. Call to order. Like an approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would like to call for a approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. The only thing I ask is that we remove the 5:04 p.m. for Josh in the minutes, because Josh was excused and he was not here last time. So if you look in the minutes, it shows that he arrived at 5:04. So if we could remove that, so I'd ask that we amend the motion to approve with that change to the minutes. Would you do that?
Yeah, I will re-motion with the amendment.
And I will re-second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Financial reports, Joseph.
Yeah. So there were 2 checks that went out. One was for the fair materials, for the marketing supplies and whatnot, the gift cards that I think were given out. And the other one was for the magic show, which I believe was just recently, or will be in a few days.
We just had
Yes.
joint venture,
Yep.
last week.
Or not?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions for Joseph? Okay, if not, we will move on. Public comment. Okay. Library director's report.
Well, I got a few extra things to add. In the front of the library, by the copy machine, there's now a reader's advisory corner. So there'll be tools for people finding books. Along with that, we're looking at potential shelving. I have a request out for EGS Retail here in West Bend to see what they can do for shelving for us to display our collection better. We had moved outreach to, now it has an office, so where Sarah used to be is now our outreach office. And where the YA office was is now storage for youth programming. The 25th, next week, Wednesday, the Friends will be looking at our basement, cleaning up some stuff down there, preparing for a big book sale. It's exciting.
Yeah. Big book sales, exciting.
Yeah. Met with a number of people, Noelle and Maria at Casa Guadalupe, and they recommended we need signage that's bilingual and marketing materials that are bilingual to make it more welcoming to use the library. We talked about the book walk. They thought it'd be nice to have that translated or have a bilingual book in the book walk. And then they'll plan to bring the crew over here and visit the library. We had a director's council meeting. Not a lot has happened. There's no information on the new
Salary director?
system director.
Salary.
No system director information. I was told that they did offer the position to somebody, but they're in negotiations. But I don't know if that's true. We met with Milwaukee Alarm Company, Steve Miller, the window film guy, the camera guy, JF Lopez, the roof person, doing the floor and the roof. Went over and visited Epic. They have a great coffee machine, and that's probably as much as I got on that one. We now have a relationship with several people over there, they're good people. Visited the Bend and talked to Jeff Potts, and we talked about eventually partnering to show movies down to Bend with the library. Also met with Mike Husar and the door guy. We also, right after our last meeting, we saw about 3,000 people at the fair booth with 5 libraries from Washington County. We're still looking at future building needs. The roof has a leak, so if you go up to the 2nd floor, you'll see some chutes where the leak came in from the air handler system.
That might have been taken down.
Anything on there? Okay. So we're looking at having that covered with rubber roofing material potentially. And then a couple of upcoming meetings. Thursday, we're meeting with Contractual Services. We're looking at a new contract with them potentially for next year yet. I was meeting with the new WLA Executive Director tomorrow. I have a meeting set up with an acoustical company to check the story time room. If you've ever been in there, you know that it echoes a lot. So they're going to provide a plan for $200 about what we need to put in there to dampen the noise. Because I can't understand how anyone would want to be having a program in that room with the noise the way it is. And then I'm also meeting with the Marine Park Technical College. That's it for all my additions.
We haven't replaced the screen in there, right?
We have not replaced the screen there. So I think after we have the acoustics remedied, then we can talk about adding technology as screen and sound in that room. It will work.
Steve, can I ask, so I hear a lot of what I would call infrastructure things in your report. At some point, will you be bringing, and your team be bringing some sort of a plan for all of this? So I see a lot of like this and this over here and this over here, and I love the looking at all the things, right? Like I've been in that room, I've been in there as a community group, and I couldn't hear the person halfway across the room. I get all of that. How do we turn that into some sort of strategic plan, a plan or an action plan? Because some of those are ads versus the roof needs to be replaced, or the HVAC system, or the sprinkler system, those operational pieces, so we don't all of a sudden end up way over here when we forget about those day-to-day things.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple big things that are in need of CIP, work into the CIP. The doors is kind of a big deal. The roof is a big deal. Now we have this air handler issue. So these things come up that we don't have a plan for, and they're going to be probably large ticket items. So we need to work that into the CIP if we can, or we need to figure out how we're going to deal with it moving forward. So considering we're talking about what our next steps are, Brad and I are discussing that and saying, if this is going to leak through the winter before we get a roof next year, we might have to deal with it this year, and how we're going to address that. So we're doing a lot of triage, and that makes it kind of look a little bit messy. But it is, the CIP has been updated. I think I shared it with you a couple of meetings ago, but if it didn't, I'm putting these things in the CIP, so the doors are in the CIP.
That's for 2022?
The doors will be in 2023, I believe. But I'll be bringing the CIP to the board for approval.
Can I ask what's wrong with the doors?
Yeah.
Well, there's large gaps underneath. They're 20-year-old doors, and they're steel hollow core doors, so they've spent their lifetime in the elements. We did address the most urgent need of the receiving doors, the double doors where we have our receiving dock. The alarm was going off regularly because of the warping of the doors, so we put an internal or external mount alarm on that to solve that problem. So that's at least not causing us to come in on weekends when we don't need to. The other side, the flip side of that is the doors are still warped and hard to close, hard to open. There's a number of doors that are in that state, so when we talk about things that should be emergency exits, they should open, no problem. It should be easy to open by a child. Not so great when you have to throw your shoulder into it. So,
Totally understand.
yeah. Other things that are coming up that we're talking about are the blinds, and I put it on in the report, but I didn't put it on for agenda to discuss. The blinds are also probably about 20 years old. I know we've had some restrung. Some of the, what do we call those things, the louver type things?
Like the slats?
Slats. Some of the slats are pretty beat up. Some of the mechanics doesn't work, so even if we have restrung, the mechanics doesn't work.
I think going back though to what Kim had said, I think we probably should have a even if it isn't a strategic plan at this point, we probably need to have you provide us with a list, a running list of the things that
And I
we're
think
looking
goes
at.
issues.
when it goes back to is there's the known issues and then there's the how do you map out, I mean, we tried this as the board, we look at the facilities plan, like, you know, yeah, in 2023, we need new doors, and then we know that, if I remember correctly, with CIP, city pays portion, we pay a portion from that county funds, you know, in your report.
No county funds anymore.
No, but
do
we have our
a little
funds,
bit,
right,
yeah.
the 50/50, you know, like in your director's report, there was the, I forget, was it youth services or outreach, there was like a wish list of something. And I get real cautious, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, so you can weigh in on this. I see items on that are $300 requests for fund balance, $3,000 for a couple of, maybe it wasn't a couple tables for some tables. I personally view fund balance maybe differently, of how do we work some of that into our budget and those types of things versus, I don't want to get in a boat where we need to find the other 50% to redo the doors, and we use fund balance for the $300 chair or the table or whatever the story is, and having that long-term plan and a strategic use of fund balance versus looking at that as the above and beyond to buy those, and I hate to say extra because they're not necessarily extra things, they're necessities, but how do we fully use that budget first before we touch that fund balance?
And I do know some fund balance, some organizations with fund balance has a policy, and that might be something we as the board need to identify through a policy saying, what is the dollar amount that Steve can come to us for a fund balance request, as opposed to the smaller amounts, you know. Again, fund balance being, it's out there and it is our money to be spent, but like Tim said, if we piddle it away on a lot of things and we wouldn't have money for the roof or we wouldn't have money for the sprinkler system, that would be a travesty, because then we would be really in a bind.
And then, depending upon where you're at in the fiscal year, so we approve the use of $10,000 for fund balance for something. We get to the end of the year, we haven't used our entire budget for whatever reason. We didn't fill a staff position. Like, we shouldn't be touching fund balance unless we really need to take that money out at the end, so we're not going back and forth. What can we put into our budget versus those strategic building envelope types of things, I think is something the board should have a conversation around. And part of that is you get to know the budget, Steve, that will get easier of those needs and where you can take that out of there. I just feel over my time on the board, it's become, and nothing wrong with it, I just think there's a better way to do it. Well, we've got this request that showed up today because somebody had an idea. Well, ideas are great, but how do we strategically get that out there that, you know, when I hear you say, oh, we need sound over in the, you know, the story room over there, well, if we're gonna redo it acoustically, is it really right to put a screen in and a projector, or are you looking at basically this without the camera, right? Or that strategic look at it and stop relying on the fund balance for the little extras of, we had this great idea, so we're gonna ask for $500 here, or $600. So now, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, that's just kind of my take on that.
And one of the things that we did do is this equipment was actually purchased out of money that would have transferred into a fund balance from last year.
Right.
So what we had done is, instead of moving the money from the 2019 budget that was left over, we said, is there something you could use it for, a big ticket item? So we purchased it. So that would eliminate what you were saying, moving money into a fund balance and then coming back and requesting it.
Well, and you have that plan of, you know, they're not, you know, some things are wish listed, but some are to move our library forward to what we want it to be here. If we need this type of a space, that's on that list, and you know what, we had a really good year because, I don't know, not to say now, but energy went down, and so we were able to save $8,000 or $5,000. We can apply that to this project we need to know, and we're using that yearly budget, and then leave that fund balance for the bigger ticket item types of stuff, or a surprise. Like, we should never have a fund balance of zero to back up some of those surprise things, so if we write a policy, what is that percentage we're not gonna go below, or, you know, what do we believe that should be in our operating budget? I know for us at the district, we have a policy, ours is really more built around the fact that you need it for credit rating and all that type of stuff, but we have a, I don't don't know the percentage, I think it's 14 to 18% of what our operating budget is what our fund balance should carry at minimum, some of those types of things, so that we get into that strategic, and I feel as a board, we've been trying to go there, we just have not made it there. We've talked about the facilities plan, we've talked about managing those projects, you're starting that list of things, now formalizing that, and then starting to project out that we can use 20 grand of our regular budget and 20 grand of our fund balance in 2023 to figure that out.
What I'd like to suggest is we put this on the agenda for next month, because it's not there. So we would put like a fund balance policy, and I'd like to set up a committee, so think about it. If someone would be interested in, get back to me, and then that we can announce it at the next meeting. Right?
Sure.
Task. Any other questions for Steve? Steve, anything? Nothing?
No, I panicked for a second, because you said sprinkler project, I was like, oh my gosh, that's supposed to check with today, was that on the?
That's on here, yeah.
And it is.
I know. Okay,
What would you call that, like what?
add an item to the September agenda for fund balance policy.
So it'd be like policy
Okay.
committee?
Yeah, or fund balance policy committee.
Fund balance,
Can
okay.
I ask a question? Because we obviously have other policies, and like Steve, you just brought some, the last meeting, we talked about some of our policies. Instead of having it become the fund balance committee, do we just have a standing 2-3 person policy committee? And then every year or 2 years, that group reviews those changes, if there needs to be, and it's brought forward, it formalizes that process, instead of creating a policy committee for this policy versus that policy committee. I don't know how the board feels on that, but then we could get into the regular review. I think Steve, you said one when we brought last time, hadn't been looked at for like 10 years or something like that. I don't know what the board's thought is, instead of just a specific policy committee to one policy to take.
I would also imagine that this specific policy has some ramifications at the city level that we want to be in line with. Or some kind of, I imagine the city has a fund balance policy that we want to make sure that we're considering, that we're honoring that to the best of our ability, with our freedom to do what we want.
Right, yeah.
Well, and part of it's just borrowing language from it, right? Like, we're not worried about rating in
And
the
I
sense
think-
of going out for a bond,
No.
but yet there are things you can use out of other people's languages and line it up.
And basically, what I think we're looking at, what I'd be looking for is a dollar amount policy to say, what is a set amount to come and request money out of the fund balance and things like that. Okay.
I think we'll have more to talk about as we get through the budget.
Well, I'm sure we will. Okay, library board director's report. The only thing I have to say, Steve forgot in his report that he will be doing a presentation at the History Center, Tower Heritage Center, on September 15th, which is before our next meeting. So if anybody's available, you could go and sign up to hear him talk. And he's going to be talking about the history of the West Bend Library.
So, what I know. If you have tidbits you want to share, feel free. I've got a few books to pull information from, but in my skills as a librarian, I'll be able to find some more information for sure. But if you have other things that you want, throw it in there.
Awesome.
Okay. Number 8, old business. We have no old business, so we'll move on to number 9, new business. A, the 2020 interim director adjustment.
No action on that because I don't have the final numbers from
The city.
the city, so I
Okay.
was hopeful that it would happen, but we'll take care of it next time.
Okay. And we will then move on to new business, item B, the 2022 budget, and looking at the draft budget.
Do you want to do sprinkler system? Sprinkler system? First.
Oh, you want to do the sprinkler system first? We can.
Yeah, yours
Well,
different
mine
than
is-
mine. How'd that happen?
Did some things change?
Well, did you send out a second agenda?
No.
No? Well, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's talk about the budget then.
No, yours has the what does everybody else have? The sprinkler system first?
I have
C.
Budget.
sprinkler
Yeah, it's
system
C.
as C.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is went out at the packet. That must have been what you had to put typed in the packet. Okay, all right.
Doesn't matter.
Um, Yeah, we can talk about the budget. Go ahead with you.
So the first page is the organization chart, with the new reorganization structure. So that's all been updated. The second page, the positions have been updated. If there's a different title, the title is listed second to the old title. Moving on to the third page. And I should say that does, with the change of positions from full-time to part-time, we have funds to, without changing anything else in the budget, to add 3 positions essentially.
Full-time positions?
Yes. Well, they're part-time positions, the equivalent of.
It's 3 full-time, so it could be 6 part-time or however you.
I did adjust the metrics, that's the next page. I expect that we're going to see more patrons come in and more circulation with how things are going in the world, who knows, so I try to be very conservative on the numbers there. We just recently did a purge of users, so we adjusted our total card holders down for users. That number could go up depending on how registrations go in the next year, but that's where we're at the moment. I guess you can look at all that. And then the achievements in 2021, we have our self-service options are being installed in the next week or 2. They'll be up 2 weeks from now, right?
Give or take.
Give or take 2 weeks from now. They should be up.
More like 10.
We reorganized the staffing to allow us to have more personnel with our current staff funding. We started Friends of the Library organization, which is going pretty well. We're going to have our big book sale, I talked about that. And we provided service and expanded materials through the pandemic. So the goals that I put down for 2022 is create a new strategic plan, build partnerships with local organizations, and I did that twice.
Yeah.
We're
It's
really going to work on
Clearly.
a strategic plan.
We're really
I had
emphasizing
something
it.
else there, so continue to do what we're doing, I suppose. So if there's other goals that we want to put in there, we can address that. Yes, complete a building plan.
Well, I was thinking in the strategic plan, you probably would have a facilities portion on that, which would be the building.
Okay.
So unless the board wants it as, we probably could list it as a separate entity. You know, we could have a strategic plan, that was strategic
Let's put it
plan.
all in the strategic plan, I like that idea. All right. Then moving on to the next page. This is unchanged at this point for salaries because of the salary study, things that are going on in the city of West Bend. So that is our current salaries. And that,
Steve, can I ask a question on that?
Mhm.
So my understanding is that there was no action taken last night at the council, I read the paper right this morning. If this comes back, they do the study, the council approves it, or whatever happens, right? And if they approve a change, we still have to then approve and come back and do the change here for the library staff? Or does it become automatic across?
we would do an approval of the new salaries for our library staff.
Okay, thank you.
Does that mean a decrease or an increase?
For library staff, based on the wage study that was presented, it would be an increase for library staff. From the meeting last night, there was no motions, there was an agreement, a consensus to set funds aside to have a wage study done, I believe, and then set funds aside for paying for that wage study in the future, but there was no action on that. So
But there was head shaking.
there was head shaking.
There was head shaking. So you can go watch the video from the city and find out what head shaking is.
Okay.
Because
You hear
there
marbles.
was no motion made, but it was like a pseudo consensus or something like
Yeah.
that. I have no idea, but it was like.
Pretty much.
I was thumbing through Robert's rules and it was like, I
They didn't have
couldn't.
anything about head shaking in there, did they?
No.
No, so, it-
And I think what they were talking about is setting aside the full 453 and, putting it into an account, so if down the road we get this study or don't get a study, but take other action, that money that we would have approved last night is still there
so
in its
that
entirety.
raises or increases
Yeah.
can occur.
Yeah.
Basically, and I wasn't at the meeting, but I viewed the meeting, it was several of the common council people did not feel comfortable with the study that was done because it was done internally and they didn't go out with an RFP and have a professional do it. So what has, my view of the deeming has been is that through the head shaking, our city administrator can go out and write an RFP to now go out and spend money on a study that was already done, but it will give the common council members who were concerned a much more secure feeling that it was done accurately. The interesting part that I'm going to see, and one of the council members did say this, is I have a feeling that study's going to come back and say, you're still underpaid.
Mhm.
And
Right.
that there's going to be more dollars.
Right.
And then that meeting, I might even try and get a tape of that meeting, because it's probably going to be so entertaining. I'll make popcorn. Yeah,
Have a watch party?
have a watch party, because I think that'll be
But
really
you
good.
can't all come, because then there would be a walking quorum.
Not the board.
Right.
We could come here and
Yeah,
watch it.
right.
Okay, go ahead.
And
So-
Steve, I'm trying to, where is it? Okay, so like, there's Hannah's position was the youth services librarian, correct?
Teen
No.
librarian,
Teen librarian.
teen librarian.
Okay,
Which page are you on?
I went back to,
Oh, okay.
Fourth page, I think it's
Four, yeah, it's the fourth
is it
page.
4?
because that's still listed in here.
So reference
Actually, I'm
li-
looking at 2
Okay, so
first.
reference librarian YA was Hannah's position.
Okay.
Okay.
We found a replacement, right?
We have library associate level twos that are coming in to cover those positions.
Okay, so like I was, like when we go with the youth services librarian, are you changing the title to youth services manager?
I believe that was her preferred title, yeah.
Okay.
So the new title is youth services and manager. Let me look at the front page. Yep, that's what we've got on there, so.
Okay, and then does that, then in the job description, does changing it to a manager, does that mean that they do not need their librarian degree?
No, we'd still, well, the required degrees would be for the library director, and I would assume that you would want to have the deputy director have the library degree for sure, no matter what circumstances there are. Below that, there's no requirement from the state for a library degree for any position. It is probably highly recommended for any position in a leadership role such as the adult services, youth services, community outreach,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It would be a really good idea. Preferred, highly preferred, but hesitate to say must have, because you can find people who have skills in the future, but that would be something that this board would reopen the job description for.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, as far as the qualifications, and then again, that would then lead to salaries, like, you know.
Sure, sure. So we were at fringes. The first one is WRS and life insurance, and that's based on individuals. I did not update that because of the wages will have an impact on that. We did look at telephones. We were able to reduce our Centrix lines down to 2, and our VoIP lines down to 24, so there's some savings in our phones. in the next year.
Just, does the city have any idea if insurance rates will be going up again this year?
I have
You
no
haven't heard
idea.
yet. I know last year we really got hit so hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
We really don't know until October, November
Yeah.
typically, so.
Okay.
I was under the impression that this year, it's like every other year.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
typically is what
Okay.
happens. No change to the outreach hotspot. Cell phone postage went up a little bit.
Postage is
Going up
going up
again?
another 3 cents. It's going up to what, 58 cents?
Yeah.
Yep,
At the end
I
of
just
the
bought
month.
like 3
And
things
end of
of
month,
stamps.
get out and buy your stamps.
Yeah, August 28th.
I
it
just
was.
stocked up on forever stamps.
And I know this isn't a library issue, but I was shocked. The average salary increase of a postal worker is gonna be 93 cents an hour. So, yeah, I saw that article. That's pretty much.
Yeah.
Me too. For work.
So, gotta figure that in.
Things.
It's 3 cents more.
And we base those numbers on what the city gave us for.
That's fine, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Library materials, we added hoopla for $10,000. And, library, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of you. Library materials, I did note everything here down here that we did. We added $6,000 to children's programs, $2,000 to adult program supplies, and we eliminated $2,000 for the 3M security strips that I know I'm using. The gas and oil, the city recommended a different rate, but I thought $3 was a safer thing, so I did $3 for
Would they
gas.
want it higher or lower?
More.
Oh, no, don't do that.
So, that might come back at us, they might say, no, that's not right, but, that's what my inkling is, and I would think that they're probably closer to 350, so.
Yeah.
Equipment maintenance, pretty much everything went up about 5%. For equipment maintenance, there was some changes with the 3M to Envisionware, so we saved some money there. And hopefully we'll find other ways to save in the future, we're looking at options, but right now, that's what it is. We didn't change anything with fuel heating costs, or light and power. I did calculations, there might be a savings there from next year if the rates don't go up. The water did go up, so that is up 7.99%.
Is that because of parking right in the basement, you think?
No, that's the rate went up.
And rate went across the city, and all we did too, everybody will.
Yeah, I didn't calculate an increase in use of water for the basement, probably very small
Okay.
for 2 bathrooms. They're just flushing toilets.
And hopefully washing hands.
Right.
Hopefully washing toilets.
Uh-huh.
Contractual services, this is the one that came up, like, 5% again for a lot of the contractual services. I don't think we added anything to this. So that all remains the same, except the cost went up. Risk management, health insurance, those are again things that I know. We're not going to deal with this round until the benefits are approved and wages are approved. Admin special purpose, I put some money in for contract attendance, professional memberships. Nothing changed with the computer printer replacement. Building maintenance and janitorial supplies, nothing changed, although I have a suspicion that that's going to come in higher. Concessions stayed the same. And then it's just the detail of everything. I did eliminate the book sale money because that's going to friends as far as our revenues go. We will benefit some from countywide library in the upcoming year, I suspect, but that's not finalized yet. And our, that's about it.
So basically, I guess what I would like to say is I would like, if you have questions or Steve or me ask the question, but I'd like you to take this home, you know, we only had a couple of days to look at it. It is only a draft, and more figures will be coming out. But kind of spend some time and take a look at it, and if you do have actual questions, I think in the September meeting or prior, you can get to Steve before, so those questions may be answered, you know, more efficiently and stuff like that.
One of the things we might want to consider in additions to this is some additional building maintenance funds for things like repairs that happen that are just regular wear and tear repairs, like replacing doors, or a hole in the roof comes up and we didn't anticipate, you know, brand new roof next year, but it will happen. Hopefully it won't, but we will need to consider repairs there. Something, you know, if I practice my golf swing in the back and I knock a window on or something, you know, it could happen, maybe it wouldn't, but, you know, we want to have some building maintenance funds so that they don't become urgent, like, hey, we need this fixed now, we've got a huge leak that is going to cost us lots of money.
Now, oh,
Steve, do you see with that, when you talk about things like, you know, earlier I brought up the furniture thing, and some of those, they're not small ticket items, but they're not sprinkler systems.
Right.
This 36,000 from us and 36,000, whatever, right? Like, I think having those built into the budget every year helps it not get out of, oh my God, now we gotta spend $100,000 on furniture because it's so bad, every chair in here is falling apart. You know, those types of things, so I think that is beneficial, and I think the only thing, and I appreciate it being in here, and I just wanna call it out, is that you took the feedback of investing in your staff for professional development, and you know, it's $6,000 to start this year, but you know, we heard that over and over again. You had shared that process. We've talked about that as a board of getting our staff out there and continuing their education, and so I'd love to hear when staff go, what it is and what they learn, because I think that culture is going to shift for you, and there's going to see more and more excitement. I think in the future there's going to be some more asks beyond that, which is great to see. So I appreciate that being in there.
I failed to mention, as we were talking, I remember the window cleaning. I put the window cleaning in there as one of the maintenance things. One of the things I wanted to point out with this budget is, you know, we're going to be asking the city for more money, and how much, you know, room do we have? We don't have a lot for some of these greater maintenance things. They could say no, and those maintenance things, I think in the past, probably got dropped along the wayside. We won't have the CIP matching from the county anymore, so that after our roof project is all done, we won't have 50%, so the city's going to have to learn to work with us in our CIP process differently, which is going to be new for them and maybe a challenge. But we do know that our roof is the worst in the city, so I think that.
and that is, but that has been put in the CIP for 2020, or
Yeah.
we've been told it has been put in for 2022. Is there anything else that we are aware of that we are asking the city to put into the CIP at this point that we don't?
No, let me just double check my notes here. That's probably
You said you put in here about the windows. What was your estimate for the windows?
The windows were, for inside and out, was 5,000.
Well, that's okay, 5,000 is fine, don't worry about it.
A little over $5,000.
Yeah.
5,500, I think, is what it came to. And there is a question of, do we need to do that sooner, or how often do we need?
Well,
5,460.
The windows have never been washed.
Right.
That I know, in 20 years. And I know 2 years ago, we had somebody come out and take a look, and they said, you know, the cobwebs and all of them, it's dirty.
Well, if you do that film, get rid of the blinds, you're gonna have to have the windows washed anyway, before they put that film on, so it's something that should be
Yeah.
done before we replace the blinds and stuff.
Yeah, one way or the other, well, I was thinking if they're gonna put window film on, at least they'd wash the inside before they put the window film on, because that's their kind of a responsibility to have that much done to apply to a clean surface. So that may be a small savings potentially. And it could come up in a future meeting that we want to do window cleaning sooner than next year. And we can have it set as a regular yearly thing. I don't know how often we want to have our windows cleaned at that rate, but Brad and I were discussing, do we just have the outside done more frequently and then the inside every few years or something like that? So it's about 50-50 as far as the costs go.
Any other questions on this? I'm sure after we all take this home and analyze it, we will all have questions. Right?
Right.
Okay.
This
All right.
is the document I'll provide the city at this point.
The
They'll
draft.
fill in our 6:30 actuals. The finance department will do that. But you can always look at our report for June for the total to find where we're at there as well. So we're in good
And
shape.
you had made a comment to me about Act 420. Because of COVID, I think that the Act 420, we don't owe as much. Maybe
Right.
because those libraries were closed.
Yeah, a lot of the surrounding libraries were closed, so the county costs are lower, so there should be more money coming to the county libraries. Because they have to give the whole budget, the levy to the libraries when they're together, so. There should be some increases there. And then we'll have to talk to the city about making sure that that doesn't exceed their. Each year, the city has to do a exemption from library tax.
Right.
calculation.
And it's based on the mill rate. And I remember in the afternoon after we were talking about that, what it was exactly. If the city gives us, how can I say it? If the county gives us so much money and the city doesn't give us a percentage or more above this, it kicks in a provision in state statute that says if you're not hitting the mill rate at this point, the county can then go out and impose the county library tax on all city residents. Because currently we, in each city that has a library, is exempt from the county library tax. And if the rates get too close where the city isn't providing enough, the county can say, well, no, then we want the city to also pay the county library tax. So it's one of those things, and every year, we, the library, have to provide information to the county clerk, Ashley, and she calculates that out. So it's just something to keep in mind. That would not be good.
This, I believe, is the proper document. Hang on a second.
The proper document for the mill rate or
The CIP that we were talking.
oh, the CIP, okay. And do we, if we have the CIP for 2022, by doing our strategic plan, we will then be able to start looking at what we need for 2023 to inform the city so they know that they have to think about that.
So that's engineering, that's roads and stuff. Fire, systems,
There's library.
So 2022, we have the library roof replacement. In 2023, I have an interior restoration due to water infiltration in the front, door replacement, and then
Okay.
2024, line replacement, 2025, slate removal in the front, replacement with carpeting. And these are all just guesses for, as far as numbers are concerned, for the most part. And then the 2026 parking lot resurfacing.
Do you think you could chop this off and send to the board,
Yep.
just that information? And it could either be in the next board packet, so we have this
Sure.
information.
I will make sure I do that, so we
Okay.
have that
Tax.
CIP.
So you want him to crop that?
Yes, and send it to us.
Into the next packet.
It could be in the next packet if you want to include it, otherwise you could send it. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, our task is going to be to really understand this budget by next month. How's that? We will move on to new business number C, sprinkler system. Motion to move $37,500 from fund balance to complete the library fire sprinkler project. And this is half of the cost of finishing the project. We had talked about this, we've been talking about the sprinkler system for the last year and a half. I know we've had the problems with the sprinkler system, so. Does anybody have any questions? Kind of
It
killed
needs
it.
to be done.
Yeah. If there isn't any questions, may I have a
I'll
motion?
make a motion to move the
37.5?
37.5 to the appropriate fund
Okay,
for
and
the sprinkler system.
which fund balance would we be moving that out of? We probably would take it out of the strategic plan, I would think. We could take it out of capital. If we take it out of capital, that'll be against, we are gonna be using the capital for the roof, but then we have to decide. So technically, sprinkler system would be considered capital because it's over a 5-year lifespan. So to make it easy, we could take it out of the county capital offset.
We could probably take equally from county and
Well, we only have one county capital offset.
yeah, let's take it from that.
Okay. So would you modify your motion to take it from the county capital offset payment?
So a motion to move 37.5 from the county capital fund balance to the appropriate accounts for the sprinkler system project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Now, this is gonna last us another 20 years, we hope.
No, probably not, but,
Yeah.
well, it'd be nice if it did.
Okay.
And we'll hope that it does.
Okay.
But in essence, Steve, it guts everything else that we need to fix and gets us on a level playing field and what we need for a proper sprinkler system to protect our building.
It's Schedule 10 pipe, and what happens is with compressed air, there's moisture in that air, and it corrodes the joints. And depending on how much moisture in the air, the corrosion will happen at more or less a higher or lower rate of speed. This sprinkler that we're replacing right now is in the attic. Around the outside, it's a wood frame structure, so it needs to have a sprinkler in it so that the attic is sprinklered, and it goes around the outside of the building. What they did last time was above the reference desk upstairs, there's a long patch there. So, and it goes out to each corner that has something that goes out into the, like a big window. So, it will be something that will need maintenance again, and whether it's replacing the sprinkler tubing or whatever. I did discuss this briefly with Max, the engineer from the city, and they said, I think it was Max, maybe I'm wrong. They talked about nitrogen generators as an alternative to compressed air. Some people use nitrogen because it's a larger molecule and then it's inert gas and it doesn't have moisture in it. But the thing is, you'd have to purge all the compressed air out or all the moisture out of the system to make that work. And the two of us, maybe not the smartest people in the world, but I don't know if that's worth the investment. Is what we came to.
Question, so we just did on my business, in our machine shop, we use a lot of compressed air. They actually blow off some of the moisture. And we have all these valves, special things we retrofitted within our compressed air system.
Interesting.
And it's, maybe that's something they can do in an enclosed area with a sprinkler, but we installed a bunch of these valves this last year because our pipes were leaking and water was building up in the system too.
Yeah.
They're dryers, basically, and then
Sure.
they shoot it out.
I don't know how it would work with a sprinkler
Yeah.
system, because it's gotta maintain that pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's something I'll look into,
I
I'll
was
ask.
curious, maybe sprinkler systems, because this type of system can't use that.
Yeah, I love learning new things, so it's worth investigating. And if one company can't do it, somebody else might say they can, and we'll see if
Okay.
they're, yeah, right. I'm gonna stop there.
Has the city gone off with have we or the city gone off for an RFP on this, or?
It's already in place,
Okay.
the company, we had one quote, and only one quote, we asked several companies to provide quotes. I think it's partially because it's only a partial job that that company started, so
Okay. Okay.
we're finishing up their work.
All right, we have a motion to move the funds and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next regular meeting is September 21st. Where does this year go? And that will be probably because the final budget, because it doesn't,
Yeah, the
pretty
final-
close to the final budget.
Hopefully the final budget will be there, unless they're still working on wages, which could, I'll have some guidance one way or the other as far as how to budget for wages by then, I suspect.
Okay. Assigned tasks.
We have added the policy committee to the September agenda, and board members are going to think about being on the fund balance policy committee,
Or just policy.
or just policy committee. All right, we're also gonna look over the budget draft and email Steve or Deb before our next meeting,
Anyway,
before. And then we're gonna crop the 5-year project plan and send it to the board members.
Steve will. Okay,
Yes.
Steve?
okay, I think that's it, right?
Time for the meeting, 5 o'clock again?
Yeah, that's what I was
that's
gonna ask.
Okay, we'll,
5 o'clock.
we will have a 5, does 5 o'clock seem to work for people?
Yeah.
Okay, great. 5 o'clock for our next meeting, sign task. And with that, we are adjourned. It is 5:57. Thank you all.